The time has come. The chips are down. Everything is on the line this weekend for a handful of teams. We got the biggest border battle in the history of college football. Well, of this year so far. I mean, it's not Ohio State and Michigan. It is not. It is not Ohio State, Penn State. It's not Oklahoma, Texas, Georgia, Florida, Arkansas, LSU. It is Ohio State and Indiana. Ladies and gentlemen, Indiana was a doormat for decades. And this guy, by the name of Kurt Singetti, comes in. He's got a handful of transfers. No, I think he brought in quite a few, actually. But nonetheless, and he took a program left for dead. It's a basketball school that hasn't been very good in basketball the last number of years. And he has completely and totally, I don't want to say like rejuvenized, because it was never juvenized to begin with, but he's juvenized an entire state. The state of Indiana has become a football state outside of Indianapolis. But, you know, not my fault they drafted Anthony Richardson. But nonetheless, what Kurt Singetti has done already is absolutely incredible. He has come in, turned a doormat second thought, a freebie school to the Ohio States, the Michigans, the Penn States. He's come in there with a bat and just clobbered everyone. And what he has done has been nothing short of a miracle. Everybody's making this big hoopla about prime time all throughout the offseason in his first year. And they're all going hog wild when they start. I think it was 4-0. I think. Something like that. And then falling off. Now, they're back this year, and they're looks like they're going to the Big 12 title game. But the job that Kurt Singetti has done has been the greatest work I think I've ever seen out of a head football coach. It is one thing to take over a program, sort of like what Kalen DeBoer is doing, that has a solid foundation. Everybody knows their job, and it's just taking the wheel, don't crash the Corvette. What Kurt Singetti has done he has completely built what looks like to be a McLaren out of scratch. And now he is sitting, Indiana Hoosier football is sitting one win away from going to the Big Ten title game, and very likely to the college football playoff. Now, they are saying that, we needed 12 teams, right? Yeah, we needed 12 teams. Well, you got your 12 teams. Well, they were saying 16, which that's probably going to be coming down the pike sooner rather than later. But nonetheless, Indiana, they cannot be expecting to be able to get into the playoff with that loss. The college football overlords, known as the College Football Playoff Committee, has they do not take kindly to teams like Indiana, BYU, great example. They lose a close, tough one, and I get it. It was at home, and I do punish teams who lose at home far more than I do when they lose on the road, almost regardless who they play. But nonetheless, they have obviously the college football playoff is going to be announced. Well, by the time this is released tonight, I mean, they have essentially thrown BYU off the bus. Like the AP, I should say, has just completely thrown them off. Like the AP, they went down 7 spots with 1 loss. They are now behind Miami, Boise, and SMU. And SMU lost to BYU. So, yeah. So, anyway, back on track here. Indiana, they have to win this game to get into the playoff. They have to. There is no safety net here for Indiana. Now, I think Indiana's got a really solid shot, but the question is the stage going to be too big for Kurt Singetti and the Indiana Hoosiers? This is the Fox Noon Big Kickoff, whatever they're calling it. I think the fact that it's at noon actually helps Indiana a lot more than what you would expect. Just simply because those noon games, they don't quite have the big fight feel of being under those lights. And I think that's going to help them with that. Now, Ohio State, Ryan Day, he has a tendency to shrink in these moments as well. Look at Oregon earlier this year. Horrible clock management ended up costing Ohio State the game at the end. You look at last year, Michigan. The moment was too big. You look at Michigan the year before. They got pummeled. You look at against Alabama in 2020. Didn't go well. Even with somebody as great as Justin Fields. And especially this year with Ohio State, they have a tendency to play to the level of the opponent. And it's going to come back and bite you. And it could very well do that right here. And honestly, if Ohio State loses this game, I'm going to have a hard time trying to justify Ohio State being in the college football playoff. Because their one big win is against Penn State, who, I'm going to take a page out of Colin Cowherd's book, is the fake ID of college football. If you can beat them, then you're legit. Because Penn State, they are the biggest fakers in college football. With James Franklin at the helm. But anyway, different video. This is very much a play-in game for the college football playoff. The winner, they're in. The loser, they're going to have to sit back and watch. And they're going to need some dominoes to fall in front of them. Now, as we enter this game, the Hoosiers actually the line moved last time I looked, but it went from 11 to 13-point underdogs. And I was sitting here thinking 11 was high. 13 is insane. I don't think Indiana's losing by 2 scores. Because Ohio State has a tendency, especially with a well-coached team. We saw this against Nebraska a few weeks ago. Ohio State plays down to their competition. And with somebody as brilliant and as slick as Kurt Singetti, that is going to come back and bite Ohio State. And as I speak right now, I have talked myself into it. May regret it later. Give me Indiana with the upset. Now, as I let's take a look here. Let's take a look here. We're gonna be. I gotta hold on. There it is. There it is. Got the screen fixed. Woohoo! Good team. Anyway, so we got the 2024 Ohio State Buckeyes, 9-1, second in the AP poll, behind Oregon. 9-1, one loss come to Oregon. 12th in the country in points per game. First in the country in points allowed. That, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be the big difference here. That's going to be the big one. Especially considering that they have played Oregon. Oregon did triple that average here because they did score, I believe, 30. I think it was 30. Again, don't remember off the top of my head. But nonetheless. And then you have solid offense, the unlimited bankroll that is Ohio State, that built this team. And as I think about it, I want to bring up another thing here. This is another edition of bought versus grown. Indiana, they grew together very quickly, I might add. You have this little interesting nugget here. Second in the country in points scored. Now, granted, they haven't played tough competition this year yet. But this is the test. And this is the only test in the regular season for Indiana. But good teams are doing exactly what they're supposed to do against bad teams. As load up their schedule here. 31-7 against FIU. 77-3 against Western Illinois. 42-13. 52-14. 42-28. 41-24. 56-7. The famous here we are game against Nebraska. 31-17. 47-10 against Michigan State. And then 20-15 against Michigan, but Michigan is still a tough partner nonetheless, even with a putrid offense. But they're doing what good teams do against bad teams, mopping the floor with them. But now we have good team versus good team. And I do like Ohio State's coordinators and Chip Kelly and my mind blanked on him. Put it in the comments. Put it in the comments. I know he was at the Oklahoma State before Ohio State. But anyway, nonetheless. This is your Ryan Day, though. I have questions. I have serious questions with him. And obviously, the game that is next weekend is the ultimate test on whether Ryan Day stays or goes. But this is one heck of a precursor to what may very well come in the game. And that's another thing that you have to keep in mind. Is Ohio State looking ahead to that game? To the game? Is Ohio State overlooking Indiana? Because at the end of the day, it is still Indiana. They are unproven. Are they the new kids on the block here to stay? Or are they just renting for 10 games? And I think they're here to stay. Singetti, tremendous coach. And the more that I think about it, the more and more I like the Indiana Hoosiers to upset the Ohio State Buckeyes in Columbus 7 days before the game, adding even more pressure to Ryan Day to get that maize and blue monkey off his back, which we'll get into that next week. There is a lot to get into next week, but this is this week. And this is Indiana and Ohio State. And by God, am I excited for this game. I can't wait. I can't wait for this game, and I am so thankful that the Big Ten plays 9 conference games. And this isn't an Ohio State versus Mercer, Alabama, Georgia, yeah, and the rest of that crew. Now, I'm sure you guys have heard of the college football nerds, and their model, which is absolutely tremendous, and I love their model so much because it does all the hard work for me, and I don't have to do much. I can just point and click. I can do that. I'm good at that. I may not be good at predicting games, but I'm good at pointing and clicking. So, here we go. This is the model prediction for the college football nerds. 25-14. So, the model has Ohio State winning, but not covering. Now, down here, you have the Indiana rushing against Ohio State's defense. 34% below average, their Indiana's rush average. Now, they do get better with the passing, but rushing defense and the passing defense also takes a pretty decent size hit, -6 and -15. This is going to be the Indiana defense is going to have to step up. They are going to have to be tremendous. And you know what? I think they can be. I think the model the model doesn't put into play the headset of the coaches because it's impossible to do that. You can only guess. That is not what this model does. It doesn't guess, but it is accurate. It is very accurate, and the link for this will be down below. So if you want to play around with it, and go sign up for their stuff because they are tremendous. Now, there is another game going on that is of note and has major ramifications and could very well put the college football committee in one hell of a conundrum should the unthinkable happen. Should an upset happen. And that is Notre Dame Army. Oh my Lord. Who would have thought, coming into the year, the 2 biggest games of the weekend in week 11, 12, whatever week this is, in late November, the 2 big games of the weekend is Ohio State, Indiana, Notre Dame Army. And who would have thought that it would be Army and Indiana undefeated going into those games? Now, Notre Dame should be undefeated, but you got those pesky Northern Illinois Huskies that went into South Bend and beat them. But anyway, well, yeah, I don't forget about that one. So yeah, I do believe they are crazy overrated. But nonetheless, and I guess I digress, I should say. So let's take a look at some stats, shall we? Notre Dame. We got 9-1 on the season. That one is still absolutely hilarious. And then 6th in the AP poll, which is grossly too high. 11th in the country in points scored. 3rd in the country in opponents' points scored. With the 4th best strength. I don't even know what that means. What does that mean? SRS. Simple rating system, a rating that takes into account the point differential and the strength of schedule in the rating. Okay. Something that I'm not going to understand while recording. But nonetheless, Indiana or Notre Dame. Right? I got Indiana on my mind. Anyway, Notre Dame. They have they've had some they've had some pretty good wins here. Georgia Tech was a good win. Navy was a good win. Louisville, A&M early in the year. They've had some good wins. This one is crucial for both sides, obviously. Now, should Army pull off this upset, we're gonna have a crisis in college football because we are either gonna have, should Army pull off the upset and win out, we are gonna either have an undefeated Army team, American Athletic Conference champions, out of the expanded playoffs, or should Boise State win out, which they should, and win their conference, we could have a one-loss Mountain West champion out of the college football playoff, the expanded college football playoff. And with the college football playoff being 12, that's a problem. It wouldn't be an issue if it was 4 teams. But it is a massive issue if it is 12. Because this expansion, this watering down of the college football season was done so that stuff exactly like this does not happen. But here we are. So, let's take a look at Army. We have 22nd in the country in points scored. We have 2nd in the country in opponents' points scored. Second only to Ohio State, which they're at 10.3. And Ohio State's at 10.3, so we're at like hundredths of a point as far as rating-wise. So, which is actually pretty interesting. Now, Jeff Monken, he has done a tremendous job with this Army Black Knights team. He's been there for a minute. I don't know if it says how long he's been there. Not on this screen. But I believe he's in like year 10. $11, but he has completely and totally revitalized this Black Knights team. Completely. From when he started there. He ended the longest losing streak Army has ever had to Navy. And not only has he ended that streak, he has completely flipped that rivalry around and got some Navy coaches fired over the past decade. And I'm biased for Army. So, and I do root for Jeff Monken. I am rooting for Army. I really hope Army pulls off the upset this weekend. I think they can. They have that legendary 21 play, 16-minute drive, ending in a touchdown. How crazy would it be if Army got the kickoff in the second half, and just melted the clock all the way to the fourth quarter with like 5 minutes left? Oh, that would be one for the history books. And if any team can, it's gonna be Army, and it's gonna be against Notre Dame. I don't know, where is that game? I I completely blanked on where that game is. It is at a neutral site. Oh, I think it's at Yankee Stadium. So it's a pseudo home game for Army, because obviously they play over at West Point. So now I guess the question begs: what does college football nerds think? What do those nerds think is going to happen? What does the model say? Well, ladies and gentlemen, the model has the upset, 17-11. Army, 15% better in rushing offense, 18% better in passing offense, minus 18 on the rush, but plus 30 on the passing yards on defense. I mean, that my jaw dropped when I looked at this result, and I can't believe it. Like, because when Notre Dame just thumped Navy, I was thinking, oh, okay, Notre Dame may be better than we thought, and Navy has still yet to win since then. So looks like Navy was kind of sitting on some fool's gold there, but nonetheless, they Army, I don't think they are. Granted, their schedule is weak, but same as Indiana, they are blowing everybody out of the water. Again, 42-7, 24-7, 37-14, 42-14, 49-7, 44-10, 45-28, 20-3, and then 14-3. That was only because Army had a 9-minute or a 13-minute drive. Like, Army has ragdolled and played with everybody that they've played. This team ain't no joke. And if Army goes undefeated this year, I truly hope they at least get a shot in this expanded playoff, because these guys have earned it. These men have earned it. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how things, as the NIL rolls in and the transfer portal continues to run wild. What can the academies do that is that this may actually help them with the fact that they don't do all of that? Because we do see it a little bit, and this could be a precursor to this. But when you got guys starting to play for money, you got guys that are in it for themselves, yeah, they're not going to play as hard. That's just the reality. And I'm not saying it's gonna be every guy. I'm not saying that. But a larger majority, when you have a team that is bought and paid for, may not mesh. It's probably not going to mesh, because you have guys out there playing for the name on the back of the jersey as opposed to the front. Army, Navy, Air Force, they don't do that. People don't go to Army to play football. But it's their opportunity to live out a childhood dream. And that's what these guys are doing one last time before they go out and do the bravest thing a man can do for his country. And that I respect them for. Wholeheartedly and unequivocally. So, here's to hoping Army pulls off that upset. Go Army! Beat Notre Dame.